Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and happy Friday, happy hour. Welcome back to the Motor1.com Test Car Happy Hour. I am Seyth, Miersma, editor-in-chief of Motor1.com. Joining me today from what looks to be a pretty nice hotel room somewhere
Pretty
in South
posh.
Korea is
Yeah,
managing editor Brandon Turkus. Brandon, tell us all what time it is, where you are.
I am in Seoul. It's 6 a.m. on Saturday, so hello from the future, everybody. I've been up with some nasty jet lag since about 2:30, so I'm in rare form right now.
Yeah, we are extremely happy that Brandon was able to join us because everybody else is sicker on the road, as is often the case this time of year, both because we're really busy driving new cars and also everybody's gotten sick. We can't tell you why Brandon's in Seoul, South Korea right now at all. We can't even say anything about it at all, which is very exciting.
Top secret.
Suffice it to say that it will be made apparent in the next couple of weeks on both the website on Motor1.com and on probably on this podcast. We'll talk about it a little bit too. So in the meantime, I'm just going to remind everybody, I want to say hi to, I don't know how to say the first commenter's name. I apologize. It's not Horatio. It's Horaho or something that probably is in a different dialect, so I won't even try. Thank you for joining us. Gary Clark, always good to see you. Kevin Hawthorne, great to see you again. Hope things are going well in Lakeland, Florida. And do we have anything that we want to talk? Can we throw the first one up? If anybody out there, including Horaho, can explain more or better what a plastic carrier boy, plastic carry boy for Gladiator is, I would love to know. Maybe that's some sort of dig. Is it a burn that I don't understand? But glad to have the comments. All right, why don't we kick off with Gary's got a longer comment. We can talk a little bit about Ram Rev 1500 before we jump into the cars that we've been driving. Brandon, how's that sound?
Sounds like a plan.
All right, so Gary is asking, did Ram take a page from Ford's playbook for EV trucks being functionally the same? Did GM reinvent the wheel just for propulsion system change? Will Ram slip a range extender in there? These are all really good questions. This was the topic of conversation last weekend and a little bit before, but certainly last weekend with the Inside EVs group in our group chat, because Ram Revolution, which if you guys haven't read, I encourage you to go to Inside EVs and check out our coverage on the Ram Rev 1500, which is their concept electric truck vehicle. And I think it's fair to say, Brandon, correct me if I'm wrong, it looks closer to maybe Ford's version of electric pickup truck, meaning sort of production focused, more like an EV powertrain in an existing product rather than Chevys and GM's, which is more like a ground up design of a new kind of vehicle.
I really think that Ram kind of split the difference between the two approaches, which I think is smart. So I see both sides of it. I see there's definitely some new material in there, but it's not quite as copy and paste as the Lightning feels. Mm-hmm. The Lightning, it's really, front and rear clips and a couple of small aerodynamic changes. The Ram seems a little bit more substantial, especially in the cabin. So, yeah.
That's.
But I'm pretty sure they are. I'm pretty sure they are on the record as saying there's going to be a range extender. So I thought that was something that was confirmed.
Yeah, that was part of the, whether it was, I think, in the lead up to the Super Bowl commercial and kind of the debut of the prototype. But the point I was going to make is it's fair to say that this is still a prototype, right? We are not talking about, this is not like a production version of what will eventually become a production vehicle. This is still a prototype that we're looking at.
I think it's pretty near production. I think I'd be willing to bet a lot of it's locked in. It's pretty close.
I guess my thought is that maybe some of the stuff that looks new, that design that starts from a blank piece of paper on the inside and the rest of it still could go back to stuff that's kind of like in the toolkit for Ram already, for Stellantis brand stuff. So, but yeah, it'll be. I mean, we are following it with great interest. We've had tremendous interest in that vehicle since we started covering it, and definitely this past weekend we saw a huge spike. So, Gary, thanks for the question. Now we're off the weeds. We're going to have sort of a Stellantis Jeep Ram Ram, Dodge. Maybe Dodge doesn't enter into it that much. Oh no, we are talking Dodge podcast today. Ram Rev is a fantastic vehicle. Sorry, this is EKG Canadian Enthusiast saying Ram Rev is a fantastic vehicle. If people thought it is going to like a concept, well, it's their fault, not Ram fault. I think what you mean is, yeah, if people were expecting a concept truck that was going to hit the streets, that's on them, right? At the end of the day, Ram is in business to make money. They're hopefully going to create some really exciting electric vehicles and electric trucks for us to use, but they're not necessarily going to break all of the rules of truck design in the process and create something that's never been seen before, right? I mean, especially with pickups, that's hard to do, I think. Like, we've seen it a little bit. We're going to talk about it next week. I've got a Rivian R1T sitting in my driveway right now, which breaks a lot of those rules. We've seen a lot of iteration in the truck space over the last couple of years for sure with electric powertrains, but you still have to do some pretty basic stuff.
I think it's important to understand why, and I kind of just had this little brainwave of why a vehicle like the Lightning is the way it is. Ford is obsessed with economies of scale, and you look at like the panel, the number of things that are shared between the gas Lightning and the gas F-150 and the Lightning, and it's really substantial, and that lowers the cost of production for the Lightning for Ford. They're actually setting themselves up so that they can make a profit. And I don't see either of the other brands, either GM or Ram, really doing that. So I think it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Now, the interesting thing is that both the Ram and the GM vehicles are going to be the more advanced EVs when they finally hit the road. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, there are plenty of ways to sort of skin that cat, as it were, in terms of how you bring it. And honestly, I think all of them good for kind of different customers, right?
Gary, Gary, I have seen the Cybertruck. I was there when Alon broke the windows.
It does exist. There are a couple of them. The rollout's been rough, but all right. So let's talk about some actual trucks, because both of us have been driving trucks. Me over this past week, and Brandon, you a couple of weeks ago, because you've been traveling, both from the Stellantis brand portfolio. Why don't we start with this Gladiator? Because Brandon, for a little behind the curtain, Brandon is the one who is responsible for both booking and sort of assigning all of the vehicles that we drive every week across Motor One and Inside EVs. I've been asking for a Jeep Gladiator for a long time, simply because I didn't get a chance to drive it when it was brand new, because I was sort of working in a different business, and I've had this one this week, and it's been kind of eye-opening for me. I want to apologize to you guys too. You're seeing this kind of quasi B-roll video that I shot of the vehicle. It was beautiful the rest of the week, but I've had some issues with my children being home more than I needed to be, so I was not able to get out and take photos and video of it while it was nice. And today there was a massive ice storm that shut down the city of Ann Arbor, and this was the best that I could do with the Jeep before they had to pick it up this morning. So I do apologize. It looks kind of tough that way, though. Yeah?
I think it looks good. No, Gary, I don't think none of the Wranglers or Gladiators really ride firmly. They're all super softly sprung for off-roading purposes. But the ride, that doesn't mean the ride is good. The ride is typically appalling.
The ride quality is not great. This was a vehicle this is typically when my wife is getting in something, she just doesn't comment, like good, bad, or otherwise. She's not all that interested. But when we got into the Gladiator, we went down last weekend to do something with the kids, and so we had everybody piled in the car, and she really disliked it because I stepped on the throttle too away from the stoplight. The engine doesn't sound great. The exhaust tune is not great on this car. It doesn't sound. It's not that it's too loud, but it sounds cool. It really is a little bit unpleasant. And then there's so much roar from the tires, even at like 35 miles an hour, like around town, that you're never going to convince somebody that the reason to buy this is because it's got good like NVH or ride quality or a it's not like a lovely place to spend time.
That's a huge reason I'm such a Bronco fan, is the ride quality it still has that tire roar and it has arguably more wind noise, but the ride quality and the steering response it's so much more livable for everyday driving.
Yeah, I mean, listen, so the Gladiator package is really interesting to me because I do think, well, first of all, I see them all over the place. And granted, Brandon, you and I, when we're at home, are both in Southeast Michigan. So we have to sort of, cut the
There's a
of,
bubble.
yeah, we're in a bubble, and we have to, like, whatever we see in terms of domestic brands, we have to cut by like 75% in terms of what the rest of the world probably sees. But it's been very popular. It's sold very well, as all Wranglers have for Jeep for quite some time, and there's a good reason for it. It is a fantastic lifestyle vehicle. It looks tough. I mean, it actually is really fun to drive if you're not concerned with it being, like refined. It's got a lot of character. This Wrangler maybe less than the last generation and some of the earlier ones that I've driven. I'm interested what your point of view on this is, but I used to equate, or would always tell people, that driving Jeeps was a lot like, playing with like a lab puppy or something like that. They're just all over the place. They've got a lot of energy. They're not always super predictable, but they're always really entertaining. And you can triple that when you take them off road.
I mean, my attitude with Wrangler and Gladiator is that I always really look forward to them, and then 10 minutes after they arrive, I'm like, okay, I'm done with this. They're fun to drive, but they're so uncivilized. I think the Gladiator is actually the best of the bunch because the wheelbase is so much longer. It feels a little bit more stable over like potholes and stuff like that. So I mean, if I were buying one, I'd be about a Gladiator soft top all day long. Although those seem to be rarer than hen's teeth.
There's a lot of money in this one. We talked about it when it first showed up. Like the sticker on this thing, on the one that you're seeing the video of here, is $67,000 flat, which is crazy. I actually went through and used Jeep's own like payment calculator. If you were buying this thing for them, it's like with good credit, it would be this, and it's like $1,200 a month to own and drive this thing, which is bananas to me because you've got to have a lot of money to be able to afford like two of those payments, for instance, if you don't want this to be your primary vehicle. And I think it would be really tough for this to be a primary vehicle for just about anybody but a single dude, right?
Yeah. It's when we say lifestyle, like we're not just talking about like it's a lifestyle that you want to have, or you want people to see you having. It's your personal lifestyle really needs to work with it.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that when that happens, so sorry, EKG brought up the point too that the Gladiator is okay, but a Ram Dakota would have been a better product. Also, a V8 is needed. That's an interesting. I will politely disagree with you there, not because I don't know that the Dakota one has ever had a lot of cachet. I don't think when and if Ram ever bring Dakota back, it's going to be like people are going to be incredibly excited about it. They were okay little trucks, but they were trucks that I think like sat on dealer lots. They were kind of penalty boxes relative to even the competition at the time.
The interiors were garbage. I mean, the
just
interiors
absolutely
were actively really terrible.
Some of the worst, some of the worst automotive interiors I've seen.
The thing you got to remember about the Dakota is that it was also marketed and sold as a Mitsubishi. That's how bad it was.
Right. So, like, I don't know that there's a ton of brand equity there. And then the other point is that everybody wanted a Jeep truck. Everybody wanted Jeep to make a pickup truck like forever, right? This is kind of always been a thing. And I think sales have borne it out. So I don't think that Jeep was wrong to do it at all. And I think that they make a lot of money off of these, and as they do off the entire Wrangler line. I think people really love them. And I think that as a second vehicle, it's kind of a cool thing to have because you do get a little bit more utility with a pickup truck bed. You can play around with it. You can go off road. It is the 4-door version so that you can, it's a pinch for me, but I can throw my kids in the back and it's not a huge issue. You can do stuff in it, right? You don't just have to take it on the trail. So I get it from that point of view. Brandon, you made the point about the hard top here, which I was looking, I had sticker shock, but it's, what do they call this? The Freedom Top, right? Is
the 3-piece Freedom Top.
The 3-piece Freedom Top is, man, I just had it right here. Now
it's like
$2,000. Yeah. $3,000. Yeah. Sorry, $2,895 for the body colored Freedom Top, which is admittedly really nice. It's not hard to open that thing up and pull out the top panels if you want to have an open top experience, but you can do that with soft top too. So mixed I guess mixed impressions overall for this, but I am glad to have had a chance to drive it too. And I do think that if it makes sense for you, it makes a lot of sense. And if it doesn't, you should probably look somewhere else. Let's talk about your pickup, because you had something that was slightly bigger and beefier than even the Gladiator.
Yeah, I had a very unusual spec. I had the new Ram 2500 with the Rebel package, the Rebel trim package. Starts at about $71,000. I don't actually have a Monroney, so I can't say exactly how much it costs. But when Brett Evans drove this truck, he talked about how the appeal of it is that it brings a lot of the things that you get in the Power Wagon, but it's available with the diesel engine. The Power Wagon, because it has a built-in winch, can't accommodate the straight six diesel, so it's only a gas engine. This vehicle showed up with the gas engine, with vinyl floors, with a bench seat, but the big fancy 12-inch display, like portrait style display. It was just kind of an unusual configuration. Heated and ventilated seats, and it's unusual. And there's just some things like, in a lot of ways the 2500 is showing its age. The steering does not telescope, so it's kind of difficult to find a comfortable seating position. You're either like reaching for the steering wheel, or your legs are crammed up under the steering column. But as like a work truck and as like a visual statement, it's outstanding. I mean, Kyle, can you throw that picture back up? I mean, this thing has a ton of presence. I actually think this is the best looking HD truck on the market right now. I think Ram is just killing it, even with a design that's this old. I love the blacked out grille. I love the marker lights, the hood scoop, the wheels. Everything comes together really well. The red paint is a super bold choice, but it works out beautifully. It's a great looking package.
See, I don't know. Like, first of all, the front end just always gives me huge bad guy mustache vibes with that like droopy grill over the Ram logo, and then the rest of it. One thing is just that it's because of the lift on it. Like the Rebel package, especially trucks, always look like they're up on their tippy toes to me. So it doesn't feel. I don't know. Like I'm a little partial to the GMC HD trucks as well, just from a visual standpoint. But I am fascinated by that. That specification is really incredible.
It's a really unusual configuration, like vinyl floors and like a bench seat. Like that makes sense. But then you've got their heated and cooled, and you've got the big screen, and and the lack of the diesel engine, I was really surprised by. I was expecting this thing to show up with that 3-liter, and the 6.4 is a great engine. It works well in a pickup truck, but I'm not gonna lie, it felt a little bit exasperated dealing with such a large vehicle. You really had to dip into the throttle quite a bit to provoke the kind of movement that I was looking for.
Yeah, and it wasn't like you were towing anything either. I would guess.
No,
right?
No, I wasn't towing anything at all. So this was just around town, but the 6.4 also sounds amazing. So, it's there's some good and there's some bad. I think it's a really compelling package. I love the fact that Ram is offering something like this that also is available with the diesel, because the Ram's diesel engine is really great. So it's an interesting package for sure.
Yeah, and I know this is probably true of the diesels offered in HD trucks from all of the American brands. But for instance, my dad, he's had a Ram HD 2500 that I think it's like 2010 or 2011 or something like that for years and years. Bought it when he bought a fifth wheel when he retired to pull stuff around. And he's had a couple of issues with it, but like from a engine motor standpoint, like that thing just goes and goes and goes and goes, right? Like, so that is something nice about and ultimately like very arcane in 2023, but like a great big truck with a ton of cargo or towing capacity. Basically, it's a little bit different when you've got the Rebel specification, but those are really useful vehicles to have. Like if you want to pull or haul certain things, like there's really nothing else that's going to get the job done. So, and in that case, a diesel is always kind of the way that I would go, and the powertrains that I recommended those. We had a couple of comments to catch up on. G Team, hey, thanks for watching. Pointed out, I think when we were still talking about The Jeep that the Ineos Grenadier is the new 4x4. I'm fascinated by this thing. I know that some outlets were in the UK drove it. I have not seen if their coverage or the first drives of that vehicle have started to trickle out yet. I think there are a few videos out there that they did some really early stuff, but we haven't been in it. It looks amazing. It just looks like it's a new kind of like a resto mod from a brand new brand, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks really compelling. The content I've seen from the program looks super fascinating. So I'm curious about it. I think that if I'm not, I might be talking out of my ass, but the things are rather expensive, aren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking G-Wagon money.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think I don't know what the base is too, but six figures for sure, and I think probably pushing into the high six figures or high ones, anyways. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to. Well, I'm not even hiding anything. I'm not going to burn anybody, but I don't remember who wrote it. But I know that people were sort of posting on social media from the program, and there was some hints that maybe they weren't screwed together as well as you would expect them to be.
Hey, listen, they're classic Range Rover or Land Rovers. Like it's in keeping with tradition. So
yeah, they are really fascinating. I think anybody who's interested in cars and anybody who is interested in off-roading has caught these. I have lots of friends who do like camping and overlanding and things like that who have asked me whether or not I've been in one of these. And ultimately, I would love to be. I actually think that this company is a little bit mad at us right now, but we won't go into the why. But yeah, they're really compelling. Something completely sort of elementally British about them as well. As we're kind of scrolling through these photos that all look like they were taken in Wales somewhere.
Scotland.
There we go. Right on. So the only other thing that we were maybe going to pick up on, and I know I chatted about this a little bit last week, but we had an unfortunate embargo. I was in Rome a couple of weeks ago to drive Maserati's new Gran Turismo in both the gas engine format and the Folgore, the electric version. It's the Italian word for lightning, which I can never say. So one, I want to tell you guys, like, I encourage you, anybody who's watching, to go through and check out. We've got stories on Motor One for the gas vehicle and Inside EVs for the electric version of them. Fascinating new kind of range toppers. Or I guess I should ask the question, like, is MC20 the I still consider the Gran Turismo the sort of, I consider the Gran Turismo to be the flagship for Maserati because I think that it's more important and sort of spiritually connected to so many models, both Gran Turismo and other that they've done in the past.
I mean, sure, I can see that. I don't agree with it, but I remember, you know, I did the first drive of the MC20 and I absolutely adored it. I'm super jealous that you were the one to do the Gran Turismo. Because it looks great. Maserati has kind of been on a hot streak, and I don't know if there's anything happening with the sales to back it up, but MC20 is fantastic. Grecale is really, really good. Like, I would consider a Grecale over a Porsche Macan. It's that good.
Yeah.
You know, I think the Gran Turismo, I'm not a big fan of the price increase. It's pretty expensive now.
Crazy expensive. Yeah,
especially because the older one, I want to say you could get into it for, you know, low six figures, like, you know, under $140,000. This one starts at like 175, so you're automatically talking 911 turbo money. Yeah, so it's got to do something to justify that.
Yeah, I mean, and like I would say this, that like it shocked me in terms of the ICE version. That didn't shock me how quick it was. I mean, it's 550 horsepower, right? Like, and you know, you've talked about and driven the MC20. It's the same engine that's turning this thing a little bit detuned, incredibly, you know, powerful, sort of like instant acceleration. Even again from the gas burning one, it feels special in that it feels, even though it's a larger form factor with a little bit more, certainly a lot more interior space than something like a 911, and sort of usable room, more like a traditional Grand Tourer. When you get into the corners with this thing and really are hot on it, it starts to feel like an absolute sports car. It feels like the whole thing is made out of carbon fiber. You can understand what is happening with the wheels underneath you. The ability of the car that's kind of long to rotate really quickly is amazing. Sort of first bite on turn it is incredible. It helps that I was driving it on really spectacular roads. Like out in the countryside north of Rome too. So really like fantastic places to go. But also on a drive route that encompassed a lot of different surface types. So like kind of here you see some motorway stuff. We were a little bit on the highway, and mostly we were on back roads, which ranged from like completely just horrible, death-defying roads to some pretty cool like undulating pavement too, and it handled all of that very well. So in defense of the price, I would say that I think Maserati has raised the apparent level of quality, both in the engineering of the platform, the powertrain, and things like that, and the interior quality. Things that Maserati tended to get kind of wrong in the past were, like, they would have beautiful seats and lovely leather, right? But they wouldn't have, the doors wouldn't shut straight and things like that. And I think that they've largely, sorry, I shouldn't say that. I drove it for a day. Right. But it feels like they're closer to closing the gap, no pun intended, on some of those issues with the Germans than they have been in the past, which I think is really exciting for the brand.
Yeah, I'm very bullish on Maserati. I think that if they keep this streak up, the brand has a lot of potential. And I personally just love driving around in a car with a giant spear on the front end. Like it's the coolest badge in the industry by far.
Yeah, super cool. I don't love it. We talked about this a little bit, but on the MC20, I don't need to have one that's 3 feet long on the rear deck lid. But there you go, like the stitched into those one-piece bucket seats that just look like they're out of a spaceship. Like it is super cool. On the EV, the Folgore, also really amazing. And again, like I invite everybody to go and take a look at the coverage. It did a lot of those same things. Basically, the thesis for my story was this. All EVs drive about the same to me, despite the fact that they have different power levels. Brandon, we've had this conversation on this podcast in the past. This one handles in a way that makes it feel special and very different from other very powerful EVs that I've been in. So I think that it's a closer sort of competitor for something like Taycan than it is for I don't know. It doesn't have a true EV analog right now because there's so many just like large sedans. So but and it's a big one, the cars that we were in they weren't early prototypes, they were close to production prototypes, but they were prototypes nonetheless. So when you really get into like, and we're speculating, we know that this one will start at a little bit more than the Trofeo version of the gas car. So we put an estimated price of about $210,000 on it. You get a lot of expectations for things being done right, and like creature comforts being done right, and all that engineering we were talking about for fit, finish, and reliability to be done correctly at $210,000 plus, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely.
So. We've seen other electric brands have teething pains and that kind of stuff too. We were just sort of talking about it, but I have confidence that Maserati can get it hammered out. But it is going to be interesting to see and drive and experience this one when it's one that is actually sold off a dealer lot or off the standard production line.
Yeah, I mean, I've walked around the factory. I mean, I don't know if they were building, if the Gran Turismo was being built there, but I've walked around the MC20 factory, and the amount of investment that Maserati is making in its production processes is really, really impressive. The Nettuno engine is being built in-house. At least in the case of the MC20, when the eventual Folgore version of that comes out, it'll be built on the same line as the gas-powered cars. So like they're doing some really interesting things. Like I think I see a lot of investment there, and I see a lot of faith from corporate leadership in that brand and a vision for it. So yeah, I'm very, very hopeful. I really want to drive the Folgore version of this. I want to drive the Folgore version of MC20 and Grecale too. I think it's really interesting that Maserati is diving so willingly into EVs. They're essentially electrifying their entire lineup.
It's
there
a
aren't
great
a lot of brands that are doing that.
It's a great point about like that. I mean, you expect this came up in the edit of the story, right? You expect Maserati to be built in Italy. What I wouldn't expect and didn't know was that, they're building their motors, like the electric motors for the car in Italy. They're assembling. I mean, they're using off the shelf sort of components to build their battery, but like they're really doing the work to do the EV powertrain in house as well. Because that's what you'd expect. That's what you would expect from a Maserati that had a gas engine in it, right? When we were falling all over ourselves because of the sound of their naturally aspirated V8 engines, one of the things that we love to say is they're hand built by kind of craftsmen in Turin, right? And that they're trying to take that same idea.
Well, they're hand built by Ferrari.
Okay, the point. I mean, although the EV motors are being built in Turin, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So the idea, it's never going to be the same. It's not the same thing. But the idea that they're using some of those same touch points and craftsmanship that they've been lauded for over the years in this transition to EVs is, I think, really fantastic. Although clearly it comes at a price too. So cool. Well, Brandon, you need to go get breakfast and/or go back to bed. I'm not sure. Real quickly,
I got to go to the airport.
you got to go get on a plane. EKG said Maserati Gran Turismo is an excellent and really good vehicle, especially the EV version. I think we tend to agree with you, EKG. And also, the new Grand Highlander is what Toyota needed and better than Palisade, Telluride, and CX-90.
Yes to the first, no to the last bit.
Well, we don't know yet.
But no one has driven it. No one has driven it. All I will say is, at the present moment, the Highlander is inferior to Palisade and Telluride for sure.
Currently we don't know. The Grand Highlander is really interesting. We're actually just talking about we're going to go drive the new Mazda CX-90 in a month or something like that. So that coverage will be coming out too. TBD, EKG. We will let you know when we've had all the experience, been behind the wheel, about which of those new sort of big boy SUVs, midsize SUVs is the one that we love the most. But Brandon, thanks for joining. I hope you have a safe, speedy trip home. I hope you do get to watch all of the Godfather movies in a row.
That is the plan.
On your 13-hour flight back home. Thanks everybody for joining us. As ever, if you've got questions and comments that you didn't get answered here, or you're seeing this after the fact, please leave them in the feed on YouTube, and we will go back and answer it. And look for another happy hour. I think next Friday. I think I'm going to go and say we're going to move this one to Thursdays starting in March, and going to try and make it available for audio streaming as well. So for those of you who aren't able to get on and watch this live when we're doing it, we will message all that to you. But we're going to try and bring this to you on the Motor One podcast feed. We'll just give you all the podcasts you can handle all week long.
And stay tuned, because I will be broadcasting next week from an entirely different international city, on an entirely different continent.
Maybe we'll give you a break next week if we can.
We'll see. It'll be 10 o'clock at that point. So,
all right. Well, thanks for joining, Brandon. Thanks everybody for listening and watching, and we will talk to you all next week.